Hi, this is another quick video for you. This time we're going to talk about specialisation, or I'm going to talk about it. So what is specialisation? Well, put simply, individuals, firms and even whole countries choose to specialise when they opt to produce one product rather than the full range of products that they would like to consume. The opposite of specialisation is called self-sufficiency. Somebody who's self-sufficient is an individual who opts to produce every single possible type of product that they would like to consume. So, for example, a self-sufficient person who wanted to drink beer would have to brew it themselves before they could drink it. That's what self-sufficiency means, where you produce absolutely everything. So unbelievable variety. Specialization is the opposite of that. So rather than trying to produce everything that you want to consume, instead, when you specialize, you just produce one product only. Okay, so let's talk about some examples. So individuals, most of us as individuals want to consume a vast range of products: foods, clothing, cars, heating, housing, mobile phones, girls' private education, etc. We could try to meet these needs by being self-sufficient. This would involve each of us producing our own food, clothes, mobile phones, trying to educate our own kids. The skills needed to become an effective farm worker, car mechanic, weaver, teacher, they're all very different and quite difficult to master. Therefore, it's highly unlikely that we'd become efficient producers of any of these products, never mind all of them. So it kind of makes sense to choose to specialize at something that we're good at, something that matches our talents and our interests, and then we try to get better at it. And that's what you're supposed to do when you're at school and you're thinking about what job you want to do. You're trying to think about a job that matches the natural talents that you have. Okay, and then we get better at that through just practice. That's what your career's called. So the person who's chosen to specialise in fixing cars, they'll still need clothes, they'll still need to eat, they'll still need a house to live in. So therefore, to make specialisation work, trades needed, the exchange is needed. Specialists in different fields need to engage in voluntary, mutually beneficial exchange with each other if we're to ensure that we're still able to consume the full gamut of goods and services that we want to consume. So trade is needed between specialists in order to maintain the full range of consumption. And next lesson we'll look at how money makes specialisation possible by eliminating a double coincidence of wants problem that's endemic in barter. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Companies, they also specialize when they produce one type of product rather than several. So an example of a company that specializes would be this company called Crocs. I hate their product, by the way. No, it's just my subjective preferences. But they only produce one type of shoe. These like weird shoes made of flexible plastic. Whereas you would say that Coca-Cola, that they're less specialised because they produce a range of soft drinks, not just Coke, Fanta, but also healthy smoothies. So you would say that Coca-Cola is less specialised than Crocs. Countries, they also specialise or can do. So bananas are a popular fruit in the UK. Technically speaking, it's just about possible to grow bananas in Britain, but only if you're trying to do it inside an expensively heated and lit greenhouse. It therefore doesn't make sense for Brits to try and grow bananas so that we can eat them here, because the factors of production used in expensive greenhouses in Britain trying to grow bananas, we could use those same factors of production far more usefully by redeploying them elsewhere in the economy, where those same factors of production would be far more useful, far more productively used. The UK uses its land, labour and capital to produce stuff that we are good at, like financial services. We export most of those financial services, and then we use the foreign currency income generated from the sale of our exports to buy imported bananas from hot countries who can produce bananas far more efficiently than we can because they've got a climatic advantage. So that the whole world benefits through specialization. But like the key point that I need to really emphasize here is that specialization only works if there's trade. You know, imagine somebody, a country that specialized in brewing beer because they were really good at it. Without trade, they'd have a bit of a problem, or maybe not. Well, no, being serious, they would have a problem because the only thing that they would have to sustain themselves would be beer, and that might get a bit repetitive. So specializing is great. If we all specialize at what we're good at, the total output of the world economy will increase. And to make sure that we're able to maintain diversity in terms of what we want to consume, specialists need to trade with each other, and that's, you know, individuals, firms, countries. If they're all specializing, they'll all need to interact and trade with each other. So something interesting, just as a bit of a side shoot here, Marxists often sort of believe that trade is a zero-sum game. You know, one party benefits and the other party is exploited and loses out. That's only true when you're looking at exchange between the state and private individuals. You know, in that situation, the state forces through the transactions it wants, through the threat of men dressed in blue with big sticks banging on your door, threatening you to pay up, otherwise they're going to take you away and hold you ransom until you pay a fine called taxes. In the free market, all exchange is voluntary, therefore for it to take place it must be mutually beneficial. Both the buyer and the seller must benefit. If one party stops benefiting, then by logical induction they will withdraw from that exchange. So all exchange that takes place, both the buyer and the seller benefits. So exchange is a good thing. Just as again, just to try to sort of hammer this point home, I remember as a child playing marbles with one of my friends in the shelter at the primary school that I attended. He had this really great blue marble that I wanted. I had a green marble, and I preferred his blue one, and fortunately for me, he preferred my green one. So we did a trade, and like all trades, both parties benefited. Both parties benefited because the trade was voluntary. We both chose to enter into that trade. Okay, so what are the advantages of specialization? The first one is increased productivity. Remember that productivity means output per worker. So specialize, or output per hectare of land, or output per unit of capital, if we're referring to the productivity of capital. So specialization enables individuals, companies, and even whole nation states to focus on what they're good at. Factors of production can be transferred from industries where productivity is low to other industries where productivity is higher. By raising productivity, specialization enables countries to achieve faster rates of long-run economic growth. And as you know, unless you're the doom goblin, aka Greta Thunberg, like, economic growth is a good thing, because the more that society can produce, the more we'll be able to consume, and therefore the higher our material living standards will be. Okay, number two, second advantage is higher output levels. When firms specialize at doing what they do best, fewer factors of production will be wasted. By specializing, firms can produce more output from the same factor input. That lowers their costs. In a competitive market, that's likely to lead to lower prices, because firms will want to use lower costs as a way of stealing market share from their rivals by cutting price, and they can do that without losing profit if they've managed to lower their costs through specializing and becoming more efficient. Lower unit costs, I think I've just been talking about that. Unit cost is the average cost of producing a unit of output. For example, a brewery currently produces bitter and lager, two different types of beer. The brewery's daily total cost is £2,000 and they produce 100 barrels a day. Therefore, the brewery's unit cost is £20 per barrel. If the brewery decides to specialise and only produce bitter, time will be saved cleaning equipment in between batches. This would enable the brewery to raise its output to 120 barrels a day. On the basis of these figures, specialisation has enabled the brewery to reduce its unit cost to £16.67 per barrel. Companies like Ryanair base their competitive advantage over their rivals on achieving superior productive efficiency. Firms with lower average costs will be able to steal market share away from their less efficient rivals. These firms can use their average costs, their lower average costs, to cut prices, as I say, without cutting into their profit margin. By reducing prices, it could be argued that specialisation benefits the consumer. I'd just say it definitely benefits the consumer. Okay, what are the drawbacks of specialisation? Well, the first one is risk. Individuals, firms and countries who have chosen to specialise can encounter problems if the demand for the product that they've chosen to specialise in decreases over time for whatever reason. Maybe it goes out of fashion, or maybe there's a technological advance. So this is why some countries choose to diversify. A good example is the German car maker BMW, who've decided to move into electric cars, motorbikes, as well as producing petrol and diesel saloon cars, sports utility vehicles, and lots of other type of car. Nigeria is also an example. They're heavily dependent on oil. If the world price of oil decreases, Nigeria's GDP will decrease with it. And many development economists argue that countries like Nigeria should reject specialisation and instead develop more diversified economies. So yeah, it's specialising is good, but you've got to make sure that you're specialising in producing something that consumers will want to buy, not just now, but maybe a long way into the future. Obviously, this is an issue for you guys when you're thinking about what you want to go into when you leave school, because if you end up specialising in an industry that, I don't know, falls out of favour, you've got the pain in the backside called retraining. Another point, I guess, a drawback of specialisation is that on an individual level, some workers that specialise in some jobs can get bored with it. So, for example, a dentist might fall out of love with the type of work that they've chosen to specialise in. Looking into somebody's smelly mouth all day, inflicting pain on people. Maybe you just fall out of it. It's just I would imagine there's probably not much difference between one type of molar tooth and a particular type of filling. You've probably done about, I don't know, probably 500,000 of those. More or less every single day will be probably very similar and therefore maybe quite boring. And this, again, if workers are bored, that could obviously compromise product quality and standards of customer service. Again, that's definitely true. I've found with dentists, the ones that you can tell the ones that have just fallen out of loving it, in that they don't really care if they're inflicting pain on you or they do some sort of shoddy job, because they just don't care anymore, because they just find what they're doing boring. So that's, and also I would just say from an individual point of view, if you're ever in that position, you actually have a moral duty to just do something else. Okay, so that's another video done and dusted. Hope you found it informative.